Welcome everybody to the Sunday International Big Book Workshop. Hi, I'm Dan B and I'm a recovered alcoholic. Sobriety date 1st of Feb 2021. This workshop is facilitated by Kemble H. This study relies on you listening. So please, we pray that you have your big book in hand and follow along with a pen, pencil or highlighter. Make any notes and pause if you have to. Write down any questions and we will take them at the end of the meeting. We will keep everybody muted during this workshop except for the facilitators. Any inappropriate behaviour will not be tolerated and you will be removed by one of the co-hosts. This meeting is being recorded. The audio portion only is being recorded and only of the facilitators. The recording will be shut down at the end of the meeting before taking any questions to preserve your anonymity. How we open this meeting was step 3 prayer found on page 63. Please join me. God, I offer myself to thee, to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self so that I better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Have a great meeting, everybody. And over to you, Kemble.
Okay, thank you, Brother Dan. Happy Sunday, everybody. My name is Kimball. I'm a recovered alcoholic, and it's Mother's Day as well. So happy Mother's Day to any mothers that may be present, and welcome to the Keystone Sunday International Big Book meeting. It's a pretty great meeting here. I really love doing service work. It's, you know, that don't keep me sober, right? God keeps me sober. But of course, so doing service work is important, because we can carry the message to the other alcoholics. So welcome anybody new, anybody struggling, anybody coming back. I'm grateful for all of you being here for me today. So today I'd like to dig into the first part of how it works, at least. And we have some great information to share. So if you care, if you like to, you know, get your pen, your highlighter, you can take some notes or whatever. And like Dan said, this meeting will be recorded and it'll be posted onto a YouTube channel, and Dan probably give you the information after the meeting or during the meeting. So how it works, all right, it's a beautiful part of the process. You know, we just finished We Agnostics, you know, in step 2, you know, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. So now we're going to journey on to page 58, and all they're asking us to do is be willing to believe in a power greater than ourselves. See, my experience, my biggest problem dealing with my alcoholism was myself. I was simply obsessed with self. Selfishness and self-centeredness, that was my trouble. I couldn't accept the fact that I was a darn alcoholic, because I always came up with a new excuse to take a new drink. And we all know how that goes. But that's the greatest obsession was with myself, thinking I could fix my problem without 12 steps. I tried for over 3 decades, and it never worked for a drunk like me. No way possible. So I want to share a little bit of information before we get started, right? Keeping in mind, you know, when Bill Wilson was first starting this thing, you know, he had trouble with the first 40 people that he was trying to work with. And writing a book was quite a task. So Bill was writing this book in Hank Parkhurst's office in New Jersey, and his secretary, Ruth Hart, would type these chapters out as Bill stood behind her, telling her what to type in, right? As these chapters were sent, as they were finished, they were sent to the Akron and the New York groups. The groups would go over each chapter and every word. And this was a real task. And we really don't know all that they went through to get this book written, but it was quite a bit going on. So Ruth said she had typed this manuscript 40 times before it was finally printed. And I have an original manuscript called The Writing of the Big Book. It's got all these notes and scribbles and everything else in it. So by this time, when these chapters are being written out, you know, Bill had completed the first 4 chapters, and he felt the groundwork had been laid. He felt it was now time for the main purpose of the book, to show alcoholics how to recover. Prior to writing this chapter, he was having trouble. He prayed for guidance and then he laid down. After a few minutes, he picked up his pad and pencil and he began to write. He said, that it seemed as though his pencil had a mind of its own. So within 30 minutes, he had written how it works and the 12 steps. He really didn't know how many steps he needed as he started. But you know, this the 6 steps that he was incorporated with, it came from the Oxford group. You know, when Ed became to Bill's kitchen and explained to him the problem, the solution, and the course of action. So when he finished, Bill numbered these steps, and he noticed that there were 12, and he equated this with the 12 apostles, right? So, wow, that's pretty ironic. 12 apostles, 12 steps, pretty amazing. So he had just finished the steps when Howard, a New York member, stopped by to see him. Bill had a newcomer with him. Then they took a look at the steps, and neither one of them liked them. Both of them started giving Bill a bunch of crap about the steps. Well, you know how we alcoholics are. We don't like change, right? We want to keep things going the same old way. So, but the 6 steps they had already planning in the Oxford group, they didn't think too highly of Bill adding more steps and making it 12, and then 12 and 6 would have made 18, and it probably would have ended up being 24. So it makes you wonder, how in the heck would we feel if we had to do 24 steps? It wouldn't be the same as it is today, right? So there was a lot of discussion, there was a lot of arguments in the groups, and this crisis was only one of the many in writing the big book. The writing of the book stopped, and they all went through a great dilemma. Some changes were made, and they were able to go on with the book. So now we're going to talk about a little bit about what appeared in the original manuscript. After we do the reading, I'll share a couple of things from the original manuscript. So, Brother Dan, if you will, you can start on page 58 and read to the top of 59 where it says, we asked his protection and care with complete abandon.
Yeah, sure. Chapter 5, How It Works, page 58. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program, usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those, too, who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnest at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start. Some of us tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Brother Dan. No doubt. It says, first sentence, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Now, in the original manuscript, it goes, rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our directions. And the precise directions is outlined in the book. We got the whole book today. Whereas back then, when the book was being written, they only had sections of the book, right? When Bill finished the chapter, as I explained, he was forwarded to the Akron and New York office. But then, think about the path that they are talking about. Well, this path is going to be it's a simple set of spiritual tools that we'll pick up throughout the whole process. And a promise here and how it works is when you work the steps, right, carefully and completely, you will succeed. So what they're saying is rarely, that means very seldom, have we seen a person fail who has followed the whole path precisely as directed in the big book. And my buddy Tony got 34 years. He hadn't seen a person fail yet who followed these precise directions, as Bill called them, but it's following our path. We follow the path that they laid out. They went through all the bumps and bruises and problems, and they all figured it out, the first 100 men and women. So we can follow them, and our alcohol problem can be removed. We gain a relationship with a power greater than ourselves, and life will take on a new meaning for us. And then we'll have the power to help others, right? And that's the foundation stone of our recovery, helping others, no doubt about it. So then it says, those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely get themselves to this simple program. So when taking the 12 steps, they're asking us to give ourselves entirely to the working of the steps. It's pretty simple. We don't understand the steps unless we work them. Then we can get an understanding of them. And it gives us a daily reprieve eventually. So then it talks about honesty 3 times in the first paragraph, right? So what it's asking us here is be truthful with ourselves. You know, I had a problem with that. In my drinking career, I couldn't be truthful about nothing because I didn't want to look at myself. I couldn't distinguish the true from the false. But no, when they told me I needed to take an inventory of myself, I'm like, oh, heck no. I'm too good to take an inventory. Ain't nothing wrong with me. That's what ain't nothing wrong, man. What I need to get honest for? I just want another drink and everything will be all right. See, alcohol turned out to be my solution for all my problems. But then when I was being 12 step through this and we got to this section in the book, it was telling me I got to be truthful with myself. First of all, I got to be honest with myself. Do I meet the qualifications to be a real alcoholic as described on page 21? Do I have this darn allergy that they're talking about? Or do I have this problem in the mind? Yes, I'd realized that the problem of the alcoholic is sinners in the mind. And that mind makes us take that first drink. That's the manager's job. Our mind said, yeah, go ahead. It's okay for you to have one. And then when I took that one, I noticed I could never stop until I pass out or go to jail. I end up in an ambulance ride to the psych ward. My drinking was constantly increasing. The more I drank, the more that my body was demanding. So I had to get honest with myself and say, yeah, you got this problem. You really do. So that qualified me to be a real alcoholic. I suffer from the 2 symptoms. And then, so no matter how hard the situation was about my condition, I had to look at it. And then if we can see the ability to distinguish the truth, then we can commence to recover from it. But before that, I relapsed over 3 decades in the fellowship. I'm just going to tell you the truth. I couldn't find recovery if you just put it in my body, period. Because I was still rooted in myself. So, and then, especially when I joined this Keystone group, it really opened my eyes and it opened my mind to see something different other than my old ideas. See, my old ideas what kept me darn drunk, right? So when I started hearing Tony's story or Joe's story or other members of the Keystone group story, that's why I gained the experience, strength, and hope. But if these people can do it, maybe I can do it. They said they have recovered from alcoholism. But see, all the years in the fellowship, I was hearing about people just recovering. Well, I'm recovering for the rest of my life. I had to do step 1 every day. You know, I'm like, well, why we got to do step 1 every day? I couldn't understand it. See, that was the fellowship I was in, right? The watered down fellowship. But thank God for the Keystone group. They helped me to see the truth from the false. Because I was living in a delusion out there, thinking meeting makers make it, right? Well, if I go to a meeting, that's going to keep me sober for a month. That was the mentality that an alcoholic like me had. If I go to 5 meetings a week, 2 meetings 7 days a week, that's 14 meetings a week. At one time I was doing that, but always to drink again. Because they was like, oh, you just go to meetings and you'll be all right. You'll get sober and you'll have a better life. That did not work for an alcoholic like me. So honesty is very important. I had to be humbled down, first of all, to alcoholism beat me into a state of my mind that, I couldn't do it no more. It was killing me. I was literally dying. And, but anyway, it says, our stories disclose in a general way what we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. So if you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go to any length to get it, then it's got a big, long, nice little pause. It says, then you are ready to take certain steps. Beautiful part about the idea in step 2, right? It says, we came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Confirmation of doing step 2. We do the work, we take the rest of the steps, and it's grounded in step 12. It confirms it, saying, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. That, my friends, is a solution for our alcoholic problem. The spiritual awakening. It produces a change, a psychic change, or a personality change that's sufficient enough for us to recover from alcoholism. So then people may ask, well, what is this spiritual awakening? Well, we can't, it's just a change of mind, change of heart. It's just totally different than it was being selfish and rooted in self. At some extent, we become God conscious. And the bottom line, that's the only thing that got me sober myself was a God and becoming God conscious. Nothing else worked. So then it goes on to relate. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless and thorough from the very start, from the very beginning. Honesty is required and thoroughness is required, no doubt about it. When I was getting 12 step through this thing, I had to let all of this stuff go. I had to look deep within myself. I had to look deep within the actions that I was doing. I had to look all the way back in my drinking career, even down to when I was a child. Because, bottles were nothing but a symbol, right? So it was something else rooted deeper. And then I drank myself till I became ill from it. And then I kept drinking many years beyond my illness, but I didn't know I had an illness. Really didn't. So third, we'll hear about thirdly later on in the book. We went through the promises a couple of weeks ago. On page 83, it talks about that we are painstaking about this phase of our development. That means we are thorough. Painstaking is really being thorough, being thorough with our honesty. And then when we get to the realizing we can't do this alone without a power greater than ourselves, we get really honest about that. I had to get beat down for a long time before I could convince myself that I can't do it. I got to have this power that they're talking about. And this book shows us exactly how to get to that power. So then it goes on to say, remember that we are dealing with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. No doubt about it. A prayer, a simple, short prayer. God, please reveal yourself to me. Let me know you are real. I did believe in God when I was growing up, right? But then when I got to be like 16, I simply believed in alcohol. I pushed God to the side for like 40 years, 42 years to be exact. And then I thought I was God. I played God. But that was selfish. That was being self-centered. I hurt a lot of people that simply didn't care. So then it goes on to say half measures avail us nothing. Well, I had to think, what did that mean? Fearless and thorough from the very start. Yes, half measures couldn't avail me nothing at all whatsoever. So another short prayer that I can think of is that God, please help me to work these 12 steps. Of course, my sponsor was taking me through it, but I had to have, I was motivated. I had to have the motivation, but I had to have God's help. Because without him, I wouldn't have been, my problem wouldn't have never been solved. So it's just a quick, simple prayer. God help me. And I remember doing them foxhole prayers for many years, and I'd be throwing up, but that stuff didn't work because I turned right around and drank again. But now I done got serious about recovering from this alcoholism. So I had to get super honest, no doubt about it. And then it goes on to reveal, here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. Yeah, this is a suggested program. True enough, but for a real alcoholic like my type, I had to do this as a must because I tried every other means and ways and doing all of this and all of that to try to solve my own alcohol problem. So it didn't work. So if I'd have half did this, I would have never had my alcohol problem removed. But thanks to God, He did it for me. But I had to take these steps. I had to do it because it talks about that alcoholic on page 21. I don't want to never see that fool no more. I'm just be honest with you. That fool was insane. He was literally crazy. So then I want to talk about step one. The principle for step one is honesty. So that's what we're talking about. We're seeking the truth. First step, we admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. No doubt. If you want to put a note in your book besides step one, it would be honesty. Seeking the truth. No doubt about it. Yeah, my life was unmanageable because I couldn't control alcohol when I put that first drink in. So quite naturally, if I could control alcohol, I certainly had no control over my life because alcohol was my master and it ruled every part of my life. Every aspect of my life was ruled by alcohol. So I had to get honest with Kim. You know, uh, uh, every time I drank alcohol, I didn't go to jail, right? But I had problems with everything else. I had a problem with myself. I had a problem with family, my family relationships. I had problems with. I had problems with people on the street, the bars, the street corners. So something was terribly wrong. Always in conflict with myself and everybody else. So I had to look at this thing. Well, Ken, something is wrong with you. And true enough, I had to get honest right now. No doubt about it. I cannot handle alcohol in it. I can't drink alcohol in any form because I had this allergy. I had this malady. And when you can't shut it off, quite naturally, your life gonna be unmanageable. Half the time, somewhere in a blackout, or half the time locked up in jail somewhere. Well, how did I get there? Half the time, I don't remember. That's unmanageability, blackouts. So how can I manage my life when I'm blacked out? Or I'm in a state of such a drunk state that I don't even know what's in front of me. I can't see nothing on the side, on that side. I couldn't see nothing straight ahead because my vision is blurred. My mind is blurred. So it didn't make sense. It really didn't, but Lord knows what a difference today for all of us in the room. But then a little bit about step two, the guiding principle for step two, or the spiritual principle for step two, is simply hope. And we expect promises from the hope. We got a hope now. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. Wow, that gave me plenty of hope right there. But then it made me think about the title page when it says the story of how many thousands of men and women have recovered from alcoholism. So it's telling me right there, I can recover from alcoholism. And then step two talks about restoring us to sanity. Well, can my sanity be restored? Am I insane? Well, insane actually means a couple of things. Yeah, I was insane because I simply took that first drink when I didn't have a defense and it set off other things. I wasn't insane enough to be just locked up in a crazy house for the rest of my life, but I was in a state of insanity concerning alcohol. No doubt about it. Some days I'll be sitting there not thinking about a drink, then that insidious insanity that comes from the mind. Okay, Kim, get you one. You be all right. Get you two or three, and then you'll be okay. No, I wouldn't be okay because I couldn't shut that phenomenon of craving off. But thank God for step two. Then I revealed a while ago the confirmation of step two would be step 12, having had that spiritual awakening. So then the book also talks about, for by this time sanity will have returned, is found down on page 84. Let me see. 1 second. For by now sanity will have returned. Yes, the bottom of page 84. It says, and we have ceased fighting anything or anyone, even alcohol. For by this time sanity will have returned. We will seldom be interested in liquor. If tempted, we recoil from it as from a hot flame. Now we know if we take our hand and put on that hot stove one time, our hand gonna recoil. So we know not to do that no more, right? So if we get tempted, if we know we are real alcoholic, we can recoil from that temptation. Remember, it's only a temptation. It's only gonna last for so long. A quick prayer can get us out of temptation because we're not gonna be tempted beyond what we can bear today. Sanity will have returned. Now we can make these decisions. We got a defense against that first drink. So we can make it through it today. Once we take this process, we are set. We have a solid spiritual foundation to stand upon. Thank God. A little bit about step 3, it says, made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. Step 3, spiritual principle is faith. Coming to believe, came to believe. So we made a decision. That's what I'm saying. We made the decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. So now this is, like I say, this is another spiritual principle of faith. So, and this program is spiritual, simply spiritual. And Bill used to talk about how necessary it would be to find a power greater than human power. And then we can apply this power in order for us to recover from alcoholism. So, but we have to be sold on steps 1 and 2. So now we're ready to jump off into this step 3. And Bill also put these steps in his book for individual directions. All right, one step at a time, no doubt. Step 1 was the hardest in the world for me because, like I said, it took me a long time to get honest with myself. Without honesty, I probably wouldn't be recovered from alcoholism today. As a matter of fact, I know I wouldn't be. So we make a decision. We can make a decision, right? But it requires action. We can make all kinds of decisions. I can make decisions sitting here. But if I don't get my butt up and act on it, ain't nothing gonna change. I'll be stuck. Like the wheel was to roll off my car, right? And I'm gonna just sit there behind the driving wheel. Well, I need to fix it. So that's the decision, right? I'm gonna fix it. That's another decision. But hell, if I don't get out the car and try to fix it, get the jack out and jack it up and change it, the decision ain't did nothing. Or if I don't get on there and call the tow truck, say, look, y'all, the roadside service, if I don't get on the phone and call them, well, ain't no action done. I mean, decision, but action. That's what I love about this process. It always demands action. If I just sit there from now to 12 o'clock tonight, I'd have made all kinds of decisions. I need my car to move. But shoot, if I ain't took no action, then it's never gonna go nowhere. It's gonna just sit there. So this decision that I made was the greatest decision I can see today. And that decision that we make in step 3 is confirmed in step 11, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. And in part of the step 3 prayer, it says, relieve me of the bondage of self, right? But now we see self is the problem. We need some relief from self. The big book tells us, so our troubles we think are basically of our own making. They arise out of ourselves. And the alcoholic is an extreme example of self-run will riot, though he usually doesn't think so. Above everything else, we alcoholics must be rid of this selfishness or else it kills us. Prayer to God. It didn't take me but one good prayer. God, please take this bondage of self away from me so I can take the rest of these steps. And that's another decision. I had to make a decision right then and there that I must have the rest of these steps. as they call them, suggestions, but it was a must in my experience. It was a must that I take these steps. So then, talk about make a move from step 3. The next step 4, the spiritual principle for step 4 is courage. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. A searching and fearless moral inventory. That means everything had to be looked at. But I had to look at myself instead of looking at the other person. See, I always looked at other people. I always blamed my wife. I always blamed my kids. I always blamed the weather. I always blame other people. I blame other places. I blame things just to get a drink of me. So I had to look at myself. I had to get down to these causes and conditions. I had to put them down on paper. I had to see where I was wrong. It wasn't my thing. What I was the one causing all these troubles. It wasn't other people. It was simply me. And, you know, my inventory was a fun process because it was a fact-finding process. I had a lot of garbage in there. I had to dispose of all this stuff that wasn't going to be no good to me. And it worked. I had a sheet like, I don't know, I had sheets piled up like that. But it was from 42 years of drinking. And I couldn't see that I was the problem until I was being 12-step through this process. But then we go on to step 5. The spiritual principle for step 5 is integrity. Complete, you know, and nothing left out. You know, at the end of step 5, it talks about have we omitted anything. So step 5, we want to get rid of everything that is blocking us from a relationship with power. Because it says admit it to God, to ourselves, and to another human being. The exact nature of our wrong. And it says our wrong. So I had to talk to another person. I had to talk to God. Once I relieved that from deep within myself, it seemed like a whole new light had opened up. Everything that was blocking me and keeping me down, keeping me being locked up in fear and frustration and anger and resentment, seemed like it all just left. It all drifted away. But when I did my step 5, now I can see I can have a better beginning now. And if I follow the rest of this course of action, I could probably be a much better person, no doubt about it. So I'm rolling on to step 6. It talks about we're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. The spiritual principle for step 6 would be willingness. You know, there's 3 things that are indispensable in this program. It's called honesty, honesty, and willingness. Willingness is the key. So we get to step 6, entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. God is going to move these defects of characters that are blocking us off from Him. We're going to always have defects of character as long as we live. But the important part, He's going to remove the ones that'll stop our growth, spiritual growth in the program. He removed them, He'll replace them with something better. And then as we grow, we'll start seeing other defects that we couldn't see when we were drinking. And He'll start removing them too. He's never going to remove everything, because that's going to give us strength. As long as we are willing to overcome these defects and work through them, we can go a long way. Step 7, it says, humbly ask Him to remove our shortcomings. Yeah, we're going to have these things too the rest of our life. Now, Bill uses defects of character, shortcomings, and something else. He uses like 3 different things, but they all actually mean the same thing. Shortcomings are we fall short of things that we might expect from other people. You know, we're going to have these the rest of our life. But then, like I said, God is the key. We asked Him to remove these things. When He removes these shortcomings, it'll be removed 1 at a time, sometimes 5 at a time, or however many we got. We will always be baffled with some of these shortcomings because we are simply human beings. Our defects of character, our shortcomings, they are part of our human condition. So we're going to be human to the day we die. But we got a way out of being baffled with these shortcomings. See, I used to take my defects of character, my shortcomings, and drink behind them. Today, I can take my defects of character and shortcomings and I can go help somebody. I search for the alcoholic first. I like to talk to other alcoholics. I talk to other alcoholics first, and then I can talk to family or other people. I can try to help wherever I can. Basically trying to be a maximum benefit to God and to other people. But then we roll on step 8, says humbly ask him to remove our shortcomings. 8, my bad. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. The spiritual principle for step 8 would be love. That means caring about the well-being of others. Notice, it didn't say caring about the well-being of self and forget about others. That was a game changer for me. You mean I can be of love and help to other people and not just for myself? But that's what my drinking career was all about. It was all about self, 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 self. My whole life was guided with self, 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 self. But thanks to this program, it taught me how to love deeply from the heart, how to care for people, how to treat people, how to talk to people. And it's a beautiful thing, Pete. So I'm just going to tell you the truth. So, but you know, we already got the list when we did step 4. So now we're getting prepared to and become willing to make these amends to these people, right? That we all harm. Because I heard so many people in my life, I'm surprised half of them even took my amends. That's just how destructive I was. I don't know about y'all, but I was a very destructive person. When the books talks about that tornado rolling around, seeking to, destroying other people's lives, that's how it was in my career. I don't know about y'all, but I know that's how it is with me. So we got this list. It's already wrote out for us. Now we can put this list in different sections. The amends that we can make now, the amends we might can make later. Some of them we can never make. It's like 4 different sections. Maybe now, never, or later, I think it is. But yeah, but we got it all on paper. The important thing, that word willingness comes again. We learned the spiritual principle for willingness is in step 6. So now we got this list here in step 8, and we want to become willing to make amends to whoever we can. Now, step 9, it says, made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. Step 9 is justice. That's the spiritual principle for step 9. And it means repairing the damage. So, by this time, we can be willing to go repair the damage. Some amends we may not want to make right then, but the book tells us to be willing. Then when the opportunity comes, it comes. But I always ask God to give you the wisdom and to be with you when you go make these amends. I never want to go turn them in without God. We got to have that power, because our power to amends wouldn't go well at all. Some people don't want to take our amends. They don't want to hear from us. They don't want us to even talk to them and make no amends. But you know what? We don't worry about them. We done tried to do our part. Here we trying to clean off our side of the street. The inventory was ours and not the other person. So we simply go try to make restitution to these people that we harm. No doubt. So, if they take it, fine. If not, fine. Because they don't have to like us. Most of them probably hate a lot of us, right? But you know what? I can laugh today behind it. Well, I did try to reach out, but they didn't want to hear from me. I can't blame them. I wouldn't want to hear from me either. If somebody else would have treated me bad as I treated myself, I wouldn't want to hear from myself. Shoot, no. I'd be ready to do something to you right there. But anyway, that's the beautiful part. Be willing. And you ain't got to try to do this over and over again. One time's a one-time thing. And then once we make that amends to these people, we don't have to keep trying to make amends to them for the rest of our lives. One time is it. You ain't got to keep going back saying, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. You done already paid for it. You done made restitution. So don't worry yourself about continue to make amends. No, one time deal on it. You can move on with your life and just keep God in the picture, because He's going to take care of all our needs. There is no doubt about it. Then we go to step 10, right? It says, continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Step 10 is the spiritual principle for step 10 is perseverance. It's ongoing with the steps. As we know, as I shared, I think in the action the last couple of weeks, it's ongoing process. 10, 11, and 12, these are our growth steps, right? So we continue to grow. When we go through the day, and actually 10 just preps us for step 11. And then once we get to step 11, we doing 10 and all the 10 steps before anyway. So this part of step 10 that we're talking about, perseverance, is actually is in step 11 where it's concluded it. Because it says, we continue to take personal inventory and we continue to set right any new mistakes as we go along. As we go throughout the day, right? We're gonna make mistakes every day. But if we make a mistake where it's done offended somebody to the point that we need to make an apology, today we can simply make this apology and we can keep right on rolling. Instead of holding on to it like I did in my drinking career, I ain't want to apologize to nobody because they was wrong. Whether they was wrong or not, in my mind, they was wrong. And then when I go off on them and act crazy, then they think I'm crazy, right? But I couldn't see it. Like I said, I couldn't see the truth from the false. It was always about me, once again. So then it says, we vigorously commence this way of living as we clean up the past. Yeah, we don't hold on to that stuff today. Shoot, if I piss somebody out today, I can laugh at them and say, hey, I apologize. My bad. And I'm going on about my day. I ain't gonna sit there and let that crap linger on. Even if this was an enemy of mine, today I can go up to them, and if I do something wrong or say something wrong to them, I can even apologize to them too. I get that principle from another book, but it's included in this one too. It's included in love, the guiding principle. Love your neighbor as yourself, right? So love is the key. Love and tolerance is the code for us in Alcoholics Anonymous. That's the greatest principle that is, love, no doubt. So then step 11, right? It says, sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. This is spiritual awareness, knowledge of God. When we first made contact with this power greater than ourselves, which I call, I'm called it God, that's what I call it. That's my, what they call it, conception of a power greater than myself. No problem. But then growing in knowledge and wisdom of this power greater than ourselves. Conscious contact with God as we understood him. And it's continuous growth. Because the book tells us this must continue for a lifetime. And that is so true. And then when we get knowledge of God, it makes me think about something else in step 11. It says, in thinking about our day, we may face indecision. We may not be able to determine which course to take. Then it says here, we ask God for inspiration and intuitive thought or a decision. We ask God. That's a simple prayer. And when you pray to God, like step 11, we got on awakening. Then we got as we go through the day, and then we got when we retire at night. So that gives us plenty of time to talk to God. I know today, in a situation that I can face today, I have to simply bring it to God first. I have to bring it to him. Because myself, I couldn't fix myself with a sick mind. I never had no luck with that kind of stuff. So on step 12, when it talks about having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Step 12 is service work. Matter of fact, next week I'm going to do a workshop on step 12, helping others. Working with others, it starts on page 89. So step 12 is the goal we want to reach, right? This 12 steps. This is the 12 for the 12 steps. So, but there's 3 parts. The first, it talks about this spiritual awakening as the result of these steps. The promise is you take these steps, we can have this experience that they're talking about, this spiritual experience, no doubt. And then it talks about to sponsor others. Bill always thought about going to help people, right? So that's what a sponsor is. A sponsor, we simply help other people and we take them through the program. So when we doing the work, we doing this work with this in mind. When it says carry this message to other alcoholics, that's the message they're talking about. The message from the big book, and the promise of having a spiritual awakening if you take the rest of these steps. And we show them precisely how it was done. We got clear-cut directions in the big book, and it'll answer all of our problems or any alcoholic problem that has. It's got an answer for it. And then it mentions practice these principles in all our affairs. That's the third part of step 12. To follow these principles in all areas of our life. Be willing to do whatever we have to do to grow and to make progress. But look, we all know we can't do these 12 steps perfectly. Nobody can. It says we claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. There's no doubt about it. We're going to make mistakes on a daily basis normally because we human beings. This is part of the human condition. So we won't even argue about that because I make mistakes every day. Some days I don't even leave the house, but I still make mistakes. I might say something wrong to a family member. I might say something wrong on the phone. But then I got to be like, oh, what'd I do? So it happens. There ain't nothing to drink over today, though. You know what I'm saying? Because I can laugh, talk to God for a minute and everything all right. And if I feel I need to call this person back and say, wait, I'm sorry. Boom. That's getting me out of self, right? Just thinking of somebody else. What a blessing this program is. Took me out of my darn self and it led me into a relationship with God. The power that was greater than my butt. See, I always thought I had this power. I could do this, I could do that. Shoot, man, that stuff about had me dead, a walking dead man for years. Then it goes on to say, many of us sustain what in order. I can't go through with it. No doubt. That's quite a tall order for us alcoholics, right? Once again, in the beginning, y'all know we alcoholics, we do not like change. So getting ready to take these steps means we're going to have to change. Something is going to have to change. See, I rebelled at the thought of changing because I always thought I had everything under control. But the truth of the matter is, I didn't have that stuff had control over my butt. Or nothing I could do about it. But another relapse, that's the step one promise, right? If we don't do step one, we're going to drink. No doubt about it. And see, the people in the rooms I used to be in, they didn't tell me step one. In the book, step one covers like 43 pages. The first 43 pages, as a matter of fact, covers the preface. The forward to the 4 editions come with it. Bill's story, there's a solution, more about alcoholism. All this step one work. I didn't know that till I was 12 steps through this thing. But I remember the Keystone Group. I always thought step one was just go in the meeting and tell them, well, I'm an alcoholic. That was my step one. You know what? When that meeting was over, I was going to the liquor store. I tell her, well, hey, I did step one tonight, but then I'm drunk same minute, same night. So, but that was my problem, step one. So thank God for today, man. They had somebody take me through this thing. Every point of step one was brought to my attention. Wow. The beautiful part is I can sit here today and carry this message that God has blessed me with. I love helping alcoholics. Wow, I don't want to see nobody in these rooms ever suffer for as long as I did in my life. I suffered for 42 years of dealing with this malady and this physical allergy. And way back in the doctor's opinion, way before anything got started, it says the only relief is total abstinence, right? But I couldn't be abstinent because I didn't know what the problem was. See, I had to find out what the problem was in order to get a solution, right? And then I had to have a solution in order to take a course of action. So step one meant I suffered from this allergy in my body. And then I had this malady in the mind. See, the problem of the alcoholic is centers in his mind rather than in his body. So the problem with step one was telling me I had lack of power. I had lack of power against the first drink. I was doomed to an alcoholic death accept spiritual help. That's just the bottom line. Well, yes, I'll probably be dead today. Who knows? Then I think about step 2, right? A fellowship is great, but the best fellowship I had was when a real alcoholic took me through these 12 steps. That was a fellowship. Me and him one-on-one. I was in a room full of people in the fellowship for years, and I kept drinking because nobody took the time to 12-step me through this. They would always come up with excuses or telling me, call me every day at such and such a call. Tell me every time you go piss or every time you get mad, call me. Every time, if you want to drink, call me. That stuff didn't work for an alcoholic like me, man. Because I ain't going to take the time to call you if I decide I wanted to drink. No way. I need somebody to take me through it. And then the solution, step 2, we gain access to power, right? And we agnostics, which is part of step 2, it tells us where to find this power, because the main purpose of the main object of the big book is to enable us to find a power greater than ourselves, which will solve your problem. No doubt about it. And somewhere in between 2 and the next 2 and 12, that's when we get this spiritual experience. And it brings about a change. And this change, it talks about here in the back of the book in the spiritual experience, right? On page 5, 6, 7, it reads, the term spiritual experience and spiritual awakening are used many times in this book, which upon careful reading shows that the personality change sufficient to bring about recovery from alcoholism has manifested itself among us in many different forms. No doubt about it. You know, some people in the beginning, there's a white light experiences. Bill had a white light experience, and William James even wrote a book talking about varieties of spiritual experiences. Mine was over a longer course of time. So it tells you shows it's sufficient, has manifested itself among us in many different forms. So the purpose is to have a spiritual awakening. It don't tell us that we don't have to have the same experience. One person don't have to have the same experience as the next person. As long as we can acquire a spiritual experience, then we'll see our problem has been removed, no doubt. Because it also tells us on this very same page, it says in the first few chapters, a number of sudden revolutionary changes are described. Though it was not our intention to create such an impression, many alcoholics have nevertheless concluded that in order to recover, they must acquire an immediate and overwhelming God consciousness, followed at once by a vast change in feeling and outlook. But it's not like that. See, such transformations that comes like mine came over a period of time. And all of us had this experience in different ways, in different forms. But the thing is get this experience, and then we can have we had these experiences. We've been in to solve our alcohol problem. There's one more thing. I talked about that step 3 decision right earlier. This is a huge turning point in my life. When I decided to make that decision to turn my will and my life over to the care of God, this was a game changer. I could believe I can accept some spiritual help now. I can take the rest of these steps. And then next it says, launch out a vigorous course of action, and I just step forward immediately. So instead of being stuck in insanity or headed to the point of death, I now can relax with sanity and sobriety and keep trying to carry this message to other alcoholics. It's a blessing that we have been given the power to help others. And with that, I'll get ready to close it out. I thank everybody for being here today for me. Thank you, Dan, for always being my helper by my side. God bless. Great to see everybody today. Questions or a few comments afterwards? And then I got to go eat. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Cool. Okay. Hold on a second. I'm just going to stop recording for you there.